Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 27 of Chess Basics, things every chess player ought to know. Today, instead of continuing with the Morphe tactics as I was planning, I was going to do something different. I was looking at some of my old games recently, and I found a couple that had nice examples of mating patterns. So I thought I would return briefly for this one episode to the topic of mating patterns. And I'll get back to the Morphe tactics again in the next video. So this is a position I just created to illustrate one of the basic mates known as the Arabian Mate. It's called the Arabian Mate because it's done with just a knight, and a rook. And those two pieces had the same powers in the ancient game of chess as it was played in Arabia before it came to Europe. It had the same; those pieces had the same powers back then as they do today. When the game migrated into Europe in the 15th century, the queen gained enormously in power, and so it became a powerful piece. But in the way the game was played in the Arabic times, the queen was just a counselor and could only move one square at a time like the king, so didn't participate in as many mates. But these mating patterns with the knight and the rook were very common in chess as it was played in those days. So this is known as the Arabian Mate. So how do you mate with just a rook and a knight? Well, for one thing, the king has to be in the corner, or at least it helps. It has to be restricted in its movements in some way. And white plays the move. Oh, here, I forgot to get the sound on. Here we go. Knight to f6. And it's kind of funny that it starts out, it's not even a check, so black can play any move he likes at all here. If you want to avoid being mated for the longest time possible, you can do things like this. Rook b7. This is the way to survive the longest. Bishop e7, throwing pieces in the way. But finally, and you've got a pawn you can queen, but finally you succumb to the mate, and that's game over. And you see the key point, if we back up one step, is that the knight is covering these squares. The rook is covering this whole aisle, so this entire rank, so the king can't escape. And then the knight supports the rook, so that when it comes to the square h7, it just mates the king. The king can't go anywhere. If we back up, if the rook were over here on this square too, that would also be a mate. You can mate with the rook coming this way as well as this way. So that's the Arabian Mate, or at least one of them, one of the common patterns with the knight and a rook. Let's go on. I want to look at another mate. Now this is the famous back rank mate, which I assume everybody knows this one. In this position here, actually, it's black's turn to move, and he could play a move like king f8. And he would even be slightly better because white's pawn structure is not quite as good as black's. But he didn't. In this case, he took the pawn, and now he's losing because you can just grab that rook. And he can't take back. If he takes back, he gets mated. So that's the famous back rank mate. It just happens whenever the king's escape is cut off. And it's a very common theme in chess just because this is a position you can get into in a lot of cases. So it's just a natural position that arises commonly. So what I'm going to talk about, the topic of this video is Arabian and sidewall mates. So the sidewall mate is the new idea I wanted to introduce here after the Arabian Mate. The back rank mate was just for review. But the sidewall mate is a mate that occurs against the side of the chessboard where the king's escape is blocked. So it's similar to a back rank mate, it's just been turned on its side, as it were. So in this position, if black were to play knight takes pawn, which is not a good move, he can probably defend. I guess if he didn't take that pawn, he should play a move like g6 there to give his king an escape square. But he took the pawn. And then you have this move, rook e4. And this is a fork because it attacks the knight and it threatens mate. And if he plays g6, you take the knight and you go on to win with the extra material. You have enough force here to stop these pawns from queening. So, but black didn't. He played knight d5 just so I could illustrate this mate. And rook h4. This is the mate. So it's a sidewall mate. The rook, or some piece like a rook, like a queen, is delivering the check along an open file, h file or a file. The pawn has to have been gone missing, and the escape squares have to be covered. In this case, you just need to cover this square, so it could have been done with a bishop and a rook, or a knight and a rook. The knight is nice, though, because the knight covers two squares here, or if there were a bishop on that square, a bishop on f7 would have the same effect of covering those two squares, so that the king would get mated even if he was on h7 instead of h8. So that's the sidewall mate. So those are the three mating patterns I wanted to show you. And now I wanted to go to a game. This is a game I played about 8 years ago. And I was a Class C player, rated around 1500 back then. And I was playing another Class C player. And let's just get to the key position here. Let's see, it was move 27. And it was black's turn to move. I'm playing white here and my opponent is black. And my previous move, let's just back this up, one move. I had just played the move rook f3 with the obvious intention of attacking on the king side. And my opponent saw that I was attacking. He wasn't completely oblivious, but he thought my next move was going to be rook h3. He said, okay, well, he's going to play rook h3, and when he does that, I'll play h6, and that will block the mating attack, and I'll be fine. So, thinking that way, he played the move d3. And now, I did not take the move. I did not play the move rook h3. I played another move, which ends the game immediately. So, this is your tactical quiz opportunity for this one. Spot the move for white. Okay, should really find this one. This is especially given the background of what I just talked about. So if you haven't found it yet, pause the video and check it out, look at it, stare at the board until you figure it out. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. The answer is queen takes h7. Kaboom. So the king has no squares he can run to. So he has to take the queen. And then the rook to h3 delivers the sidewall mate. And notice the bishop is covering these two squares. So it's a pretty typical example. I meant to include this when I was talking about line opening sacrifices. I did a video on mating patterns, line opening sacrifices, and I couldn't find this game at the time. I had a memory of it in the back of my mind, but I didn't remember exactly when it was played or where, or who my opponent was. I knew where it was played. I didn't remember who my opponent was or when it was played exactly. But yeah, I ran across it recently, and so I wanted to show this. And it's just, demonstrates that these positions arise in real games, and also it demonstrates a kind of faulty thinking that can lull your opponent into missing these tactics. It's, people just don't often think about these queen sacrifice moves. It's a move that's out of the ordinary. And in fact, if my opponent had not played d3 here and had just played a6 at this point, h6, then this is actually an even game. I mean, I have attacking chances over here, but he's got these advanced pawns on the queen side that are very dangerous, and the computer rates this as about even. But instead, he played the move d3, and then once again, you should spot that tactic very quickly. Queen takes, and then rook over is mate. So it's mate in two. All right, and one more game. This was also played, it was played about a year after the other one, and my rating had increased to about 1600, so I was threatening to move up into Class B. Class B is 1600 to 1800. And my opponent also was rated around 1600, so we were evenly matched. And let's roll the game forward here to move. Okay, I'm white here again, and my opponent is black. And it's my turn to move, and now I make a mistake. So I was looking at this position, but I was not looking at it correctly. I do have a winning advantage here. I've got the 2 rooks versus a rook and a knight, and I've got a passed pawn which is about to queen. And so I just looked about the board casually and I said, okay, well, he's got this rook and he's got this knight. But my king has lots of spaces it can move to, right? So surely it is okay. So without thinking any deeper than that, I played the move b7. And now my opponent, who is black, he played one move and I was forced to resign. So what is black's move in this position? And why does it win? You want to see if you can calculate it all the way out to the end. Okay, if you haven't seen it, and I think it would take more time than I just gave you to calculate it all. You might have seen the initial move, but you really want to see every possibility. So I recommend pausing the video and thinking about it until you see all the possible consequences of the move and all its consequences. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give it away right now. Last chance. The move is knight e3 check. And now where can my king run to? So first of all, of course, this is guarded. So the king only has 3 squares it can run to, here, here, or here. So let's try running this way first. And you should see the move. Seeing as we were just talking about sidewall mates, kaboom. The knight's guarding these squares. So the king can't run back. And this h file is open. So rook h5 is made. My king has stepped in front of the pawn. Okay, so I can't step in front of the pawn. How about if I step behind the pawn? Well, this is even simpler. Just rook down here is mate, and once again the knight is guarding this square. And last try. Back up. The only other square I could move my king to is this square. And of course black can still play the same move. Rook f1 is checkmate. And this is like an Arabian Mate if you look at it. The rook is guarding this square. The knight is guarding these squares. The rook is guarding this escape square and attacking along this aisle. And this would be the same as an Arabian Mate if all the pieces were moved over one square. And the other point is that I can't escape this way because my pawn is blocking it, and of course I can't run away from the rook check. So that was checkmate. So after knight e3 here, I had to resign because in this position here, I was lazy and didn't calculate all the consequences of knight e3 check. I just casually looked around and said, oh look, there's lots of space around my king. Surely he's not mating me. I can always just run away from those checks, can't I? Well, the answer is after b7 knight e3 check, the answer is no, I can't run away from those checks. Everywhere I go I get mated. So a game that I could have won. I was definitely had a winning advantage there. I ended up losing. So that's your lesson for today. And also, you know, thinking about those Morphy tactics we've been looking at recently, and as I was going through the Morphy games, one thing that really struck me was that it only took a single slip and he would be winning. He might play casually at some parts of the games. You know, it was the Romantic era, and they would throw their pawns away here and there and do things to, you know, enhance their peace activity. Peace activity was very big back then, but if there was a single slip by his opponent, he would pounce on it, and the game would be over. So it's chess is just a very opportunistic game, and you have to be aware of all the shots on every move, both for yourself and for your opponent. So that's your philosophy, chess philosophy for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave any comments you have in the section below. I will return to Morphy tactics in the next video. See you then. Bye.